Hey guys, it's EDDBUD coming at you live and kicking with the fastest running shoes this side of the lockdown. Today I bring you my initial review of the Saucony Endorphin Speed. So delivery wasn't the fastest on these, but no hard feelings because it still smells like a garden centre. And it's only about 9 grams heavier than the Endorphin Pro. Before we get into the initial review, if you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon, which will give you notifications of when I launch my new videos. So firstly, some stats on this new Speedster from Saucony. This one weighs in at 260 grams in my UK size 11, which is a US size 12. That's 9.17 ounces, if you like ounces. We have an 8mm heel to toe drop in this one. I've been very careful not to watch any other reviews on YouTube for this shoe. I wanted to give you my initial, very honest opinions as always. I didn't want them to be tainted by any sort of levels of expectation that I might have from the shoe. So a 10-mile effort today to test this one out. That 10-mile test run is beginning to get easier and easier each time I do it. It's a very enjoyable route as well. There's not too many traffic crossings and it takes in a nice bit of countryside too, which there's a lot of around here. I did ensure that I tested the shoe at a reasonable pace. This isn't one for just a quick plod round the cul-de-sac. You know where I'm coming from, Andy Fod Runner. Today I averaged 7 minutes 10 seconds per mile, which is an average of 4 minutes 27 per kilometre. We have a PeBax based midsole here. This is the second white mutant wonder from the Saucony Endorphin line. Saucony call this stuff PWRRUN PB. I call it responsive, firm, but fair. So, to the upper first. A familiar fit on foot. A lovely mesh upper, a little thicker than the one featured on the Endorphin Pro. If this upper material was a knight, it would be named Sir Breathe-A-Lot. Saucony have put some 3D printed pieces onto the sides here to provide a little bit of structure. They are a little thicker than the ones that appear on the Endorphin Pro. Overall, just a very slightly thicker upper here to provide a little bit more durability perhaps over time. I felt that the shoe just overall has a little bit more structure to it in terms of the upper. I noticed it didn't come with the strange straw-like pieces to hold the upper up while the shoe was in the box. That's continued round to the heel cup. You've got a more structured heel counter here. It's not hugely noticeable on foot, I've got to be honest, but certainly a slightly more structured shoe. There's a part booty construction here with pieces coming off of the top side of the tongue. They are a little thicker again than the ones featured in the Endorphin Pro. I felt this shoe provided awesome grip around my foot without it being too constrictive like the proverbial emerald tree boa. It's my favourite snake. The tongue is a little more padded and marginally thicker than that in the Endorphin Pro. Fits very similar, I have to be honest. I can note that a runner's knot was not needed by me today. It's quite hard to say that. I achieved superb fit straight off the bat just using a standard bow. Some people have mentioned that the upper ventilation holes are the same. The uppers are quite different here between this shoe and the Endorphin Pro. The cutout vent holes are slightly larger and not as frequent here in the Endorphin Speed. I can't really fault the upper on my initial run. Breathable, comfortable, superb lockdown. It really was superb and I'm lost for words on that one. I'd suggest the lockdown is better than the one achieved in the UK over the last 3 months. Very impressive. I'm going to give this a 2.8 out of 3 for the upper. Only that it's very slightly heavier, and I did notice that over time some of the hard-earned effort I put in was being absorbed by the shoe, so it was slightly heavier after the run. That side I've still given it a slightly higher score than the Endorphin Pro upper. And also Saucony, no white laces. What gives? On to midsole now. Underfoot feel is very similar to the Endorphin Pro. It really does feel very, very similar, this midsole. Obviously you've got the nylon plate in there as opposed to the carbon plate within the Pro, and it's a slightly different ride in the Speed. I think it gives a little bit more flex in the midsole and the forefoot. I think it provides a slightly more forgiving ride that quite a lot of runners will enjoy. I think for training, this gives a slightly toned down feel to what the Endorphin Pro would give you. It does remind me of the film Rock and Roll High School, which features the Ramones. At one point the principal's got a list of different bands and different sort of power levels of rock that they produce. I think Pat Boone is somewhere near the bottom, but the Who and the Ramones are right at the top. I think in terms of the rockometer, the Speed would perhaps just be below the Endorphin Pro. So I think the Endorphin Pro would probably be the Ramones and this would be the Who. but I'm talking the Who at their absolute best level, with Entwistle on bass, Moon still on the drums, blasting out a version of Can't Explain maybe. That sort of level of rock. I review a lot of shoes, guys, and I have to say that today was one of the most exhilarating experiences I've felt within the last 3 months of running. This Speed really is the real deal. A shameless display of running shoe abandon. So I hit that 10-mile route, which is 16.09 kilometers, if you want to be really accurate. Finished it in 1 hour, 11 minutes, 40 seconds. Only a couple of brief traffic stops here and there, the world seemingly returning to normal, at least down here in the sticks. It was easy upping the cadence in these energizing foot rockets. I think average cadence today was 173 steps per minute, and this type of pace is just getting easier and easier. Perhaps it's those long runs kicking in that I've been doing recently. So aside from that different plate in the midsole, I detect little difference here between the foams and the setup of the shoe. And again, for me, this is really hard to fault. There's a cushion, nice wide foot base, stable and responsive underfoot. There's nothing I don't like here. Perfect. A 3 out of 3 for midsole after my initial run in the Endorphin Speed. Outsole next. Again, I can't detect an awful lot of difference between the outsole on the Speed and the Pro here, and this makes me very confused. Forefoot, midfoot and heel measurements are all the same, and the materials seem to be exactly the same as well on both shoes. If you're not familiar with this type of outsole, we've got quite a bit more rubber here in the midfoot and the forefoot, and then a little more here on the outside heel edge. A fair bit of exposed midsole here throughout the middle. It's all about weight relief. As such, I'm going to give it the same score of 3 out of 3 for outsole. So only value remains. So with this shoe being £35 cheaper than the Endorphin Pro, what's the hitch? What's the catch? I'm not entirely sure. That's why I'm so confused. That nylon plate, slightly less aggressive perhaps, a little bit more flex in the midfoot. There's only a marginal difference between the upper and the midsole, between the Speed and the Pro. As I said earlier, the weight's only 9 grams heavier between the Speed and the Pro in my UK size 11. They only gained an extra few grams of hard-earned effort, sweat basically, despite the slightly more padded heel and tongue areas. So up against the other contenders that are out now, and they are numerous, aren't they? I really see the competitive price point as a very aggressive move from Saucony. So this is only £15 more expensive than the much heavier Nike Zoomfly 3. This is £5 cheaper than the Adizero Pro from Adidas. Durability looks like it's going to be great on this line. It has been good on other Saucony releases recently too. As such, I can't but give this 3 out of 3 for value. It is brilliant value, I think. The weight's very reasonable, superb cushion. You could train in this, you could race in it. I can see it being usable across all the distances really, all the popular ones anyway. 5k, 10k, half marathon and marathon, oh yes. Maybe if you were racing a marathon and going for a personal best, you might want the very, very slightly lighter Saucony Endorphin Pro. So if you're trying to shave off a few seconds there with that slightly lighter upper, and perhaps towards the end of the race, maybe the carbon plate will give you an extra little push here and there, but this shoe is where it's at. This is the big time. This is rock and roll. Saucony, hats off to you here. A shoe that's still higher in price, but a little more obtainable for club runners. I can see it being very attractive to a whole range of different runners out there. If I've totaled my scores up properly, I think that gives us 11.8 out of 12. Guys, you know I buy these shoes with my own earth credits. I don't get anything extra out of saying a shoe's superb. I don't get sent these shoes. This shoe is really, really fantastic. One of the best initial runs I think I've probably had in a shoe for the last 12 months. Let me know what you think of the Endorphin Speed. Is it one you're going to go for? Have you already bought the Pro? And are you thinking to yourself, did I leap out the blocks too fast? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. I've shown this one to you before, Rock and Roll High School by the Ramones, but it's something I've really been enjoying listening to this morning. Really feeling that sort of party mood right now. There's a stonking live version of Rock and Roll High School on the film. And there's some really great little cameo bits with the Ramones in as well, with Joey eating organic alfalfa and Dee Dee Ramone tucking into some tasty pizza. I think people forget that the Ramones were really a rock and roll band rather than perhaps a punk band. All of the early tunes that they used to play were very much 50s rock and roll covers, such as songs by Ritchie Valens. I think pretty much Come On Let's Go was actually the blueprint for many Ramones songs. Go and check this one out, it's a lot of fun. Rock and Roll High School. It's time for me to rock and roll out of here. Hope you've enjoyed the video today. Thanks for sticking with us through to the very end. If you haven't done so already, I'd much appreciate it if you'd subscribe to the channel and also click the bell for notifications of when we launch the new videos. It helps the channel out a huge amount as well if you give this video a thumbs up like. Make sure you share it with your running buddies. My name's Ed Bud and I'll be seeing you.